But without that process, you don't do the filtering. So not only keeping it to yourself, which you can't take it with you to the grave, at least you shouldn't, but then you're also making it clearer as far as what your journey is. And it's allowing you to filter. And so when you take that journey again, your view will be a lot cleaner because you shared it with someone else. My name is Damon Brown of DamonBrown.net. My main thing is helping you as a side hustler, a solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. Today we're going to talk about JayZ, one of my favorite rappers, and when I interviewed him way back in the day, one of my favorite people to talk to. He actually had a recent interview with Kevin Hart, the popular comedian. He just had a conversation with JayZ, and there were some really strong insights that came from it. It's all a buzz on the internet as we speak this week, so I want to share some of the major insights, particularly three of them that I think hit home, especially with JayZ. I think he's probably 51, 52 now, being an elder statesman, at least in the hip hop community, especially with it being so much of a young man's game. Let's break down some of the three big insights from the guy that calls himself not a businessman, but a businessman. Sorry, couldn't help it. This is a Bring Your Worst show, coming to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. If you're liking this kind of content for solopreneurs, for side hustlers, for people like yourself, be sure to subscribe. I think I got the right side. Be sure to subscribe. It's always free. I got about 200 and we're approaching 250 episodes. And if there's other people that you think need to hear the messages that I'm talking about in here, feel free to sign them up, or please don't sign them up, but send them over here and at least and send them this video. That's what I'm trying to say. I am tongue-tied today. All right. So JayZ ended up having this wonderful conversation with Kevin Hart. There's a ton of gems in there. I will send the link or show the link down below, so feel free to click on that. I think it's about an hour long, but I ate up every minute of it. And there were three big insights from the now billionaire hip hop mogul who's reinvented himself a million times. The first thing, which I love, is to systematize your success. Kevin Hart had asked him what happened when he felt like he made it, right? And it might have been when his first major album came out, Reasonable Doubt, and ended up doing really well, and then he established himself. It might have been later on when he ended up doing his work with Beyonce, and of course ended up marrying her and having kids. Like that point when he felt like he made it, then what? We often talk about getting up to the mountaintop, but then you realize there's another mountain after that. That's why it's important to take breaks, to rest, to do all these other details. But when you actually make it, he said the number one thing you got to do is systematize your success. Put into a framework. I would call this creating a blueprint, no pun intended towards the JayZ albums, but it's like creating a blueprint for your success. So if you were able to get something created or get something done when you were 40, then you create a system so that people that come after you, whether it's your, I have kids, whether it's your kids or the people you work with, the people you serve, such as I'm trying to serve you now. If you did it at 40, you give them the system, the blueprints that they do it at 30, at 25. You codify it. I love that word. You codify it. You put it into structure. For instance, part of my system is to create passive income. So I had a lot of lean years, and my family can attest to this. I had a lot of lean years where I was just building and building and building. But in that creating, in that building, I was putting short-term money to the side and creating passive income, which is long-term money, which, as I talked about in a recent video, it actually allows me to rest. If I'm feeling like I'm starting to feel burnt out, or I'm pushing myself too hard, or I'm having health issues, or my family needs me, whatever the case may be, things aren't going to go off the rails because I've created this content, whether it's like books, the 250 or so episodes of this show, my ink columns over at inkdamonbrown.com. I have about 600 columns on there. All those things get different revenue. That's insight that I can pass on to the people that I coach. I could pass on to my kids. My kids already know what passive income means. Like, pass it on, and so that other people can get there faster. One of the things that I learned when I had early bestsellers, when I ended up doing my app Cuddler with my two co-founders. It was the number one app in the world. We ended up selling it about a year after we launched it. Um, once once you hit those big milestones, it's not just about karma and paying it forward. Like, because even that's kind of selfish, because karma is based on our definition of karma in Western culture generally is I'm gonna do something good because I don't want anything bad to happen to me. No, I'm not talking about that kind of energy. I'm talking about what are you codifying? What are you making the blueprint for? You went on this journey. You know where all the skeletons are buried. You know where all the pitfalls are. What are you going to do with that? Excuse me. Right? You've already had your success. You can do it again and again and again. That's great. Real power, though, real influence, changing the culture, changing the circumstances of other people in the world, which is a big part of my energy, comes in taking that and putting into Career Remix. Taking my adventures with, I've had 3 best-selling books, sharing all that game, as we call it, with you for free on this channel. People hiring me as a coach and me sharing all the goods, all my toolbox, and saying, this is how you get there from here. Until you create that blueprint and you codify it, number one, you're not going to have that higher level of service, which personally is very important to me. I know a lot of people that have had big success and it feels empty to them. I think it's, for a lot of them, it's because they're not serving anybody else. How many gold medals do you need? How many bestsellers you need? At a certain point, it has to go beyond you. So if you're feeling some of that emptiness and you've been in those shoes, that might be part of the reason why. But from a purely self-centered, and I don't mean that in a bad way, taking care of yourself way, when I'm talking to you, I'm coming to you 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. We're going on 2 years now. Almost every single week. Talking to y'all, breaking stuff down, talking about my journey, talking about JayZ, talking about Kevin Hart, who I've done a video on. I'll be sure and put the clip up here. Talking about all these different folks. I'm actually solidifying, crystallizing it for me. So I'm understanding my own journey better. It's like when I'm taking care of my kids and they're asking me about something, deep questions, which is what kids do, right? And I'm telling them what my opinion is about it. That's forcing me to solidify my beliefs. And those beliefs become stronger, or they become weaker. When I'm coaching somebody and they're in a situation similar to what I had been in, say back when I was doing Cuddler or So Quotable, or when I had the Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, which became a bestseller, and I was shocked by that. When they have a path that was similar to what I had been through, a similar milestone, I can say this is bullshit and this part is great. This is yes, and this might not be true. But without that process, you don't do the filtering. So not only keeping it to yourself, which, you can't take it with you to the grave, at least you shouldn't, but then you're also making it clearer as far as what your journey is. And it's allowing you to filter. And so when you take that journey again, your view will be a lot cleaner because you shared it with someone else. Number 2, consider slowing down instead of quitting. I love this question. JayZ famously retired almost 2 decades ago now. It's hilarious now. I want to say 2003, 2004, right? I'm a big fan, but I still can't remember the year. We're going with 2003, which at this point is almost 2 decades ago, right? So whenever you're watching this, as I'm recording this, it was about 2 decades ago. And Kevin Hart was like, why the hell did you retire? In fact, he used more colorful language than that, if you know Kevin Hart's work. And JayZ was like, well, I was burnt out. I was doing an album a year, which he was every single year. I can relate. I'm doing 8 books in the past 6 years. I've been on a JayZ streak, which is why I did a recent video about why I'm resting right now. Please watch that video if you can relate to any of the shit that I'm saying right now. But he was on this streak where he did album after album after album, and then he had compilations. Remember, he was also the co-founder of Rockefeller Records, so it wasn't like he was going in the booth, spitting a hot verse, and then going back home to Beyonce. No, he had to run the business along with Dame and along with Big. Shout out to the other 2 co-founders. Right? I can relate to that part with my 2 co-founders with Cutler. So yeah. Ooh, they went through a lot. So do we. So I relate to that. So he's going through all this stuff, and he was just like, look, I'm burnt out. I'm done. I'm so tired of rapping. And he's doing concerts and all that stuff. I think he did some TV stuff. He did Rockaware clothing line, right? Like, just a lot. So he's like, I'm tired. I'm going to retire. I don't think he was even 40. And what he realized after being off, I think he was on vacation. I think he said for 3 weeks. You guys can watch the episode below. I think he was on vacation for like 3 weeks. And he realized he was just tired. So often, we feel like we have to either be on or be off. Tim Ferriss talks about this, where so many people focus on retirement. And they say, used to be 65, but today it's more like 70. When I turn 70, then I'm going to go ahead and travel the world. And I've traveled a lot. I love traveling. You hear me mention it on the different episodes. You can hear it in my books with the different places and the different languages and all those things. I love it, particularly the food. I started traveling a lot when I was in my mid-20s. I took myself to Japan. I was broke as hell, but managed to figure it out. Why I can travel so much is because I figured out how to do it when I've been broke and when I've had some money. And there are so many times when I was traveling and I saw people who, let's say I was in Italy, and they could barely get up the steps of the Parthenon, or they had to be wheeled around, which sometimes is based on physical challenges that we have, that we're born with. I know folks are dealing with physical challenges, so I get it, respect to y'all. But sometimes that comes from old age. The point is that, as Tim Ferriss was talking about, sometimes we wait so long to actually do that thing that we're not in a place physically, mentally, or emotionally, even financially, to actually do that. That's why I was like, I'm broke, but I'm still gonna go to Japan. I'm still gonna go to Europe with my wife. Like, it's gonna happen, because I don't know, and you don't know either. The thing is that we tend to have an extremist view of it, where it's like, yes, I'm gonna go ahead. I know I'm burning myself out, but as soon as I turn 50, then I'm gonna stop working. As soon as I turn 60, then I'm gonna stop working. What happens is that you end up redlining yourself, as they talk about I think it's NASCAR, they talk about that. You end up being in the red line of pushing the gas too hard. You're pushing too hard. So then the promise that you're gonna rest in the future, that your future self is gonna rest, is having you make decisions that's giving your current self a ridiculous amount of stress and burning yourself out. Adam Grant talks about this with languishing. I'll be sure and throw a link up, where it's just kind of sitting there listless and not having the energy to move forward. It's not quite burnout, but it's something else. I've experienced some of this, particularly with the pandemic and all the challenges that are happening related to that over the last 2 to 3 years. My point is that if you allow yourself to rest, as JayZ discovered, you don't need to retire. The reason why I have this renewed energy to talk with y'all, again, is because I didn't do a new show for a handful of weeks. So I had shows that I already recorded, that I was able to put up. I had some classic episodes I was able to remix and share with y'all, which y'all seem to appreciate. But I was able to take about a quarter, so about 3 months. I was able to be fully present for that. So I don't need to retire. I'm here, energetic, excited for y'all. JayZ found that the hard way. And I think JayZ had a new album by 2005. So he retired for about, if you count recording time, he retired for about 18 months. And he's still doing verses. And it's 2022 that I'm recording this. 2 decades after he retired. So maybe you don't need to retire. Maybe you don't need to save up to do this, month-long vacation. Maybe you don't need to quit your job. Maybe you just need to put a little bit of a buffer in there and make that happen. Lastly, and I love this one, you should not be afraid to partner. Number 3, listen to me, you should not be afraid to partner. Now I'm Mr. Solopreneur. Most of the books that I've written are here. About half of them are from my own imprint called Bring Your Worth. Cuddler, which I talked about earlier, we bootstrapped that. My previous app called So Codable, I bootstrapped that. I'm so used to doing things on my own. Love it. Even my coaching practice, I'm not represented by anybody. You come to me at DamonBrown.net and we're gonna talk one-on-one. I like working by myself. My latest book, Career Remix, Get the Gig You Want Based on the Skills You Got. This is not on my imprint. This is from Sterling, now known as Union Square Publishing, and they're part of Barnes & Noble Publishing. So after bestsellers on my own, I decided to partner. Kevin Hart asked JayZ about this. They had the independent ethos, the first single in my lifetime, as well as the first album, Reasonable Doubt, from JayZ. The Rockefeller Company had done it independently. They found money and they went for it. And they ended up getting distribution deals with Def Jam, but they were still an independent label. Same thing with Rockwell, I don't know what that is, Rockaware. Same thing with, I believe, with Armadale, which I believe was a vodka. I'm not a big vodka fan, so I don't know. But Armadale and all these other things they've done. When JayZ started working with Ace of Spades, which is a type of champagne, made it very popular, obviously with the hip hop set and with certain cultures. One of the major groups came in and said, hey, we want to acquire you. And what do? He said, okay, I'll sell 50%. And actually the group was LVMH, right? But they own a lot of the major liquors and drinks over in Western Europe and probably beyond at this point. So Kevin Hart was like, all right, you're about legacy. He literally has a song called Legacy in his last album. You're about legacy and all that. Why did you sell half of the company? And what he explained was that it allowed a level of reach. It gave more capital, obviously, because they gave him, I'm sure, tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars for this. But then he also still owned half of it. So that I think he has 3 kids now, the eldest, and then he has 2 little twins. He's like, I still own 50%, so it's in the Carter name. That's his last name. So that's in the Carter name. So I still own 50%, so I can pass it on to my kids, to Beyonce, whatever, to relatives, whatever. Like, it's still within that name. He said, but one of the challenges that we have as independents, and I think he meant other cultures as well, is that we're so focused on ownership, we don't want to share anything. And so you can have a brand, you can have an idea, you can have a book, in my case, and you can have 100% of the profit related to it, 100% of the ownership, IP, intellectual property, as we call it. You can have 100% of the intellectual property. I have a video about contracts where I talk about that. Contracts and partnerships, that's definitely, I get a lot deeper into IP. You can own 100% of the IP and then have nothing coming in. You could have no audience. You could have no profit coming in. You could be taking nothing home to the bank, none of it. But you own 100% of it, but it's not doing anything. Strategic partnerships, though, allow you to connect with someone that might have more capital, someone that might have a bigger audience, someone that might have more reach as far as distribution, right? So now that Ace of Spades is connected to the bigger brand, then they're able to get JayZ's Ace of Spades into rooms that he couldn't get into. He talks about it very briefly in the Hart to Hart interview, where Champagne is a tiny region in south of France. If it's not from this tiny region of south of France, it can only be called sparkling wine, not champagne. That is exclusive. That is, let's be real, super white. I don't think anybody that looks like JayZ is in there. Or looks like me, let's be real. Right? He has access to that now. So then by him partnering with them, he's able to create an even bigger legacy. So it's not holding the pie, it's making the pie bigger. I love that. You can catch the whole video down below in the link. Shout out to them and shout out to the Peacock Network who had the common sense to put the two guys together. I love it, love it, love it. Love hearing people talk about business, particularly creatives. We need more of that. Again, it's a Bring Your Worst show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe. Again, 250 or so episodes. Let's just say 230 to be on the conservative side. About 230 episodes talking about stuff like this. So if you like stuff like this, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like and share with other people that need to hear it. And again, my new book, which is part of a partnership. Never thought I'd partner with somebody, huh? Career Remix, Get the Gig You Want Based on Skills You've Got. It's available at all your favorite bookstores. I did an audiobook. I did a couple videos about that too. I worked my butt off for the audiobook. So it's the best audiobook I've done by far. Be sure and check it out. Thank you for all the love and shout out to Barnes & Noble / Union Square Company for partnering with me, as JayZ would do. Until next time, remember you can bring your worth and you can always build from now.